Welcome to You, the People. In this program, we will provide you with interviews and information from and about the people who affect your lives. Our program may include conversations with candidates, elected or appointed officials, town department heads, and more. We will delve into the kitchen table issues that make a difference in our towns and region. I'm your host, Julie Thompson. Let's get started. Welcome once again to You, the People, and I am so pleased to be with, again, Senator Patrick O'Connor, who's with the 1st Plymouth and Norfolk District, which includes the towns of Duxbury, Hingham, Hull, Marshfield, Norwell, Situate, and the city of Weymouth. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming back. Lots to talk about since last we spoke.
Absolutely.
Let's first go to your priority House bills that are pending before the legislature. One of the ones that you've been really keen on is the act requiring financial education in the schools. Hugely important. Speak to that.
It is. This has been something we've been working on for over 7 years now. And since we've been working on it, dozens of states have actually adopted legislation to make sure that financial literacy is in schools. Massachusetts is behind the majority of states now, and it's something we need to change. I was proud that this actually was just referred out last week out of the committee, and it's heading to the House of Representatives. My hope is this year is the year we can get it done. We've really built a strong coalition of the American Federation of Teachers. We have financial advisors. We've had the Mass Association of School Committees. I mean, this is something that a lot of people, organizations with a lot of weight up on Beacon Hill have gone to bat for. And when you look at the numbers of what's happening right now in investing in savings in this country, we identify a major problem. And so we think that the best way to do this is through our public education system and have one required course, one semester course from freshman year to senior year that includes financial life skills. Right. And there's a lot of products and companies, and most of them are nonprofit, that are out there that want to see this. Some founders in Silicon Valley have made it their charge in life to see financial literacy in all 50 schools, and they put a lot of their resources behind it.
Right.
And we've been working with them as well, and the way in which they're able to incorporate this curriculum, starting at the kindergarten level, where it's discussing what change is, what dollars and cents mean.
Right.
Then at the middle school level, as you potentially get your first job, how to save that, how to budget and do things like that. And then when you get to high school, you're talking about taking on potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in college debt. The potential purchase of your first automobile, all of these things that come into play. And right now at our fingertips on our phones, we have the ability to apply for tens of thousands of dollars in loans or buy a mortgage. Yeah. It's one of those things that
it's scary.
We need a lot more information out there.
Yeah.
And we've been working with the educators, we've been working with parents, and we've been working with financial literacy groups to really try and make this happen in the state, because it's something that when they've pulled this out, it's one of those issues that crosses all party boundaries that people are in favor of. And that's a lot of the issues that I like to work on, are those ones that we haven't done yet, but there's a huge consensus that we need to have it done. And there's a lot of popularity behind getting it done.
That's right.
And so financial literacy hits all of those boxes. It's one of those issues that I hope we can really achieve this session, because every year that we don't put it forward, we're going to lose another, grade, another potential generation
of informed students.
This decision-making process that doesn't make sense when it comes to their finances.
And there's so much that changes almost daily in the financial markets. The whole idea of crypto, what does that mean? And you see a lot of younger people are following along, maybe their favorite podcaster or their favorite person is telling them to do something. Is that the best advice? So I think what you're trying to do is just kind of level the playing field and give everybody all the same information.
Exactly.
So they can be,
And there's an equity issue at play here too, where, we've had this bill reported out favorably, but they take away the mandate. They take away that one semester at any point in time during the 4-year high school career, one semester.
You have to take it.
That they take on life skills. And so without that mandate, it's sort of status quo, where a lot of school districts that have resources, and they're becoming a lot scarcer now with how tight municipal budgets are.
Right.
But communities that have resources are able to put in financial education classes, mostly as electives.
Yep.
And communities that can't.
Right.
And so that's just going to be the same if we don't mandate this. It's going to be the same as what we have right now. And I would say that of what we have right now is shrinking too, because a lot of school districts, even school districts with a lot of affluence, a lot of high dollar properties, they're making some, tough decisions side of their education curriculum right now.
Right.
And so we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to make sure that we do as much as we can to give every single child in the state a real
Fighting chance.
foundation, a foundation on financial literacy,
Right,
which
right.
which they desperately need, according to every metric that's out there.
Without a doubt. And I just want to skip ahead. Speaking of schools, your act to promote student learning and mental health, which is banning cell phones in schools. Now, a lot of schools have already done this.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. How important is this?
Yeah, so this came to me. We just built a brand new middle school in Weymouth, the Chapman Middle School, and one of the things that they've implemented first was a ban on cell phones, and the results have been kids being kids again. This is 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they're able to talk with each other, have that conversation, play. They were saying in some days where the weather is not that great, they're inside of the area playing board games with each other. It's just that communication that seems to be less and less nowadays, especially amongst kids, because they're glued to their screens.
That's right.
So we took action this year. We wrote a bill, and 6 of my colleagues also wrote bills in regards to this. And to put that in perspective, none were written the session before. So this was something that really came to us quick, and we knew we needed to act on it. And I think that this is going to provide such a better learning environment for students, because during that period of time they should be learning.
That's absolutely right.
They should be getting their education and being provided every opportunity they possibly can to do whatever it is for the rest of their life. But that's where it all starts, and especially at those age groups. And so we were able to see success in Weymouth. I thought that this could be something that could be replicated across the state. We passed in the Senate. It now goes to the House of Representatives. My hope is that the House will take this up, because a lot of other states have already done this too. Florida was actually the first state to do this. But it's interesting because the first time this was done in any state was 2 years ago. And so we see how quickly this is coming up on us, of how bad the potential is, and probably the reality is, of the amount of screen time that our children are experiencing right now, and how addicting our phones can become, and different games and apps that are on there, and social media and everything else. And sort of on an ancillary point of this, I think that it's going to really cut down on some of the bullying that goes on in schools too. Because you see so many, photos and videos of kids that come out, and it's just awful. And without the cell phone, this becomes an internal thing, as it always has been, that the schools can handle. And in a case of emergency, of course, a child can get in touch with their parent. This isn't something that's going to restrict them from being able to do that. This is really an approach to say, during class time, during times they're walking in between classes, no cell phones. And there's plenty of ways. There's Yonder pouches, which a lot of concerts have used. If the band doesn't want any photos or videos taken of their music, they have to put the cell phone in a pouch and then get it after the event. There's ways to do it that way. There's a simple way of just saying, keep in your locker. We're not going to, be overly police this, but keep it in your locker. And then on top of that, just to make sure that we do as much as we possibly can to, keep cell phones out of kids' hands during school time.
School. And it forces them to focus, at least for that 6 to 7 hours. They can focus on what they're supposed to be focused on in school.
Exactly.
Which is learning and communicating and doing this face to face, talking to each other.
No, I know. And it's become foreign.
Yes.
And we need to bring it back. And we desperately need it as part of our society, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of children, this is heartbreaking. The Act to Improving Pediatric Cancer Research, that was heard in July. Talk to me about national funding and how that's affected pediatric cancer research and what you want to do here in the state.
Yeah, so this was, obviously we've gone across the district and we've talked to a lot of children who have been experiencing pediatric cancer, as well as their parents who have lost their children in this district. And inspired by them, we decided to really try to do something about this. And we looked into what's happening right now once a child is diagnosed with pediatric cancer. And it's very simply put that we have underfunded as a country for generations pediatric cancer research. And so the way in which they treat pediatric cancer is probably the most archaic way you can treat cancer. It's through the traditional radiation and chemotherapy, which, God willing, the child survives the pediatric cancer. They're typically left with a lot of harmful side effects, from a loss of hearing to the inability to have growth hormone to all these different circumstances. And so we teamed up with the American Childhood Cancer Organization, which is the longest serving nonprofit in the country. And they have come up with a mission to have each state create a fund and put money into investing into pediatric cancer research, into therapies, and hopefully cures. and treatments to make sure that these kids are given a fighting chance. And I think that that's the very least that we can do. On a national perspective, pediatric cancer has always been chronically underfunded, no matter a Democrat or Republican administration. And now we are potentially facing some clinical trial testing under this current administration, which I completely oppose, that some of that money is being diverted to artificial intelligence to try and I'm not actually even quite clear on what's going on there. But I know that we've had a long-term funding issue when it comes to pediatric cancer research. So this bill would establish that fund. Every year, the state would provide taxpayer dollars into this fund, and that fund would then go out, and the fund would be made up of a board of experts, doctors, and people in the pediatric cancer space, survivors, families, and they would go out and they would invest these taxpayer dollars into finding treatments, cures, and therapies for pediatric cancer. Other states have done it. They're over $100 million in the other states combined that have done it as far as pediatric research goes. And if all 50 states did this, it would be one of those things that we could collaborate, combine our efforts and resources, and really go after the root of this. And there's a story out of Braintree of a gentleman, Pat Lacey, who, for his son who had neuroblastoma, started raising money. He actually created his own nonprofit pharmaceutical company, hired academia as well as medical, did the research and trials, and actually have brought drugs to market. And so there's an ability out there. We just need to research it. And then I'm guessing that people at home would say, well, what about private pharmaceutical? And pediatric cancer is incredibly rare. And so the margins don't work. I think that's an unfortunate reality of economics. I think that it's horrible that that's what determines what we invest in, is where we can make the most money. But that aside, that's the way of life. And we need to, as a state and collectively as states, step up and really fight this, because I don't see pharmaceutical companies being willing to invest heavily in pediatric cancer research. And then on the other side too, the continued sort of starts and stops of our federal government when administration or Congress changes, we can't rely on that to be a consistent funding source of it. Exactly. And we need to do it.
And in Massachusetts, we are so fortunate to have not only universities, but hospitals, some of the best in the country. So we really have the perfect ingredients for making this work.
I think if any state should do it, it should be us.
It should be it. We should be the leaders.
We're already behind, I think, 8 or 9 other states that have done this. We have a big push for this to happen. But, pediatric cancer, when it happens inside of a community, you see people get together and raise money and raise awareness and support the family. But that shouldn't be what we rely on. It shouldn't be, community groups raising money and doing things like that. Our government has to play a role here.
Absolutely.
And it's something that, it's literally about saving kids with cancer's lives. Or making sure that while they're fighting, that they have the best chance they possibly can. And if government can't support that, then I don't know what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what about the act to increase the safety of individuals with disabilities relying on life support equipment? You wouldn't think you'd have to have an act to do that. Why do you have to do that?
Yeah, so again, a lot of the bills we file, as you can hear, have come from either experiences that I've had during the district or people that I've met, stories that I've heard. And this came from Maureen Shea in Duxbury. Right after I teach a class on Fridays at Duxbury Senior Center, Lifelong Learning, give it a plug. But after that, after the class was taught, I have office hours. And so I sit there, and anyone who wants to come in and talk about an issue that they have or something that I can help with, it's an open hour for anyone to come in. And Maureen came in, and she had just lost her son, Tommy. And she told me the story about what happened to Tommy. So he had a seizure disorder, and he was having pretty consistent seizures. And so they decided to hospitalize him to try and get his medication correct. They brought him to South Shore Hospital. After a few weeks, they were able to feel confident that they had his medication correct, and they sent him back to his group home that he lived in, a provider organization run group home. When he got back there, he went through the normal course of the day. He went to bed that night, and sadly he passed away in the middle of the night because he had another seizure. And every night he would wear a seizure monitor, but during the period of time that he was at the hospital, the batteries had run out in the seizure monitor, and it did not trigger an alarm when he had a seizure. He passed away that evening that he was released from the hospital. And so I thought to myself, wow, that is just such a tragic situation. What can we do in government?
Because of a battery.
Because of battery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look deeper into it, I mean, the turnover in human services is massive.
Yep.
And that's, in my opinion, because we don't give people that are in human services the respect, dignity, and salary that they deserve.
Yep.
But that's a story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Tommy, we looked into this and we thought, what was the exit strategy? What was the discharge plan? How could this be prevented?
Right.
And as we looked into it further, every healthcare provider in Massachusetts who works with individuals with disabilities, so all these provider organizations, they have to have a person with a medical degree that's on their staff.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, a hospital setting has to have folks with medical degrees as well. And we thought that it would make perfect sense to no longer just have a discharge plan, but to actually have a conversation when you're dealing with such vulnerable populations
Yeah.
like individuals with disabilities that rely on life-saving equipment. And so we put in place a bill that basically said any discharge back to a provider organization, medical professional to medical professional conversations have to happen.
Right.
And a discharge plan has to be as thorough as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And included in that is to make sure that there's checks, cleanliness of life-saving equipment.
Yep.
Because after we filed this bill, we heard from another family who their daughter relied on a breathing tube. And when she had an extended hospital stay, she came back to her group home. And when she came back to her group home, they'd never cleaned the breathing tube out. They put it back in and she got infection.
Yeah.
Luckily, she didn't pass away. But these are things that aren't just one-off circumstances.
Right.
They happen. And they happen to a lot of people in
And they're
populations.
preventable.
They're preventable
Yeah.
when they happen
Yeah.
in a lot of populations of people who can't speak for themselves.
Right.
And I think that it's on government to figure out the best strategy to do that. And this isn't sort of a government intervention. This is making sure that two medical professionals that probably should be talking to each other anyway,
Right.
now have to talk.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Here's another thing about protecting people, and there's a wiretap law. And the wiretap law, I believe, says you have to have a good reason to get a wiretap, right? You need a warrant to get a wiretap, which sometimes can be a long process.
Yep.
So there's certain situations where we need to wiretap right away if someone's in trouble. Talk about the act promoting defense to prosecution for violations of the wiretap law. What does that mean?
Generally, our wiretap law is wildly outdated. It was written during a period of time and specified in the actual language of the law that it's made for organized crime.
Oh.
It's a lot difficult it's very difficult, I should say, for law enforcement to make their case. And there are some judges that have a strict interpretation of Mass general laws as far as when they go about issuing wiretaps. But one major deficiency that we saw as we're working on trying to fix and update the existing law, one that we need to do right now is a carve out in circumstances of domestic violence.
Absolutely. Right.
And this again came to us. A young woman in Duxbury had come to us because she had recorded her alleged abuser and used those recordings in a court of law, and she was charged with 3 wiretap felony violations because she didn't have consent of the person she was filming. We've met with a lot of people on this, from law enforcement to our district attorneys, and this is something that has a lot of momentum.
Sure.
Because it makes common sense. If you're potentially going to be harmed,
right,
and you take out your phone to record a person who's potentially going to provide harm to you, and then you use it in a court of law, for you then to be the criminal, you to be charged with felony wiretap, is illogical to me. And we need to make some pragmatic updates to wiretap, I think, in many areas, but this one in particular, because once this happens, and I'm not saying in her circumstance, but in other circumstances, it's used as a defense mechanism.
Right.
Because if you look at this, you're a victim of domestic violence, so you have the criminal case against your alleged abuser. You then, if you have children, are in a custody battle, so you're in the civil courts. And then on top of that, you yourself now are in the criminal courts because you have a felony wiretap violation. So it's almost looked for by defense attorneys as a way in which they can really sort of over litigate the entire situation and put the person who is the victim of domestic violence in a situation where they're so exhausted by the legal aspect of what happened,
they give up,
that they start giving up and say, all right, I'll take custody, but I'll drop the criminal charges if you drop the criminal charges against me.
Right.
And it shouldn't be a tool we should be imploring or using inside of our judicial system.
Right.
We're better than that as a society. And I think that we can understand specific carve-outs to a 50+ year bill that hasn't been touched since then for some of the, for victims of domestic violence. I think that it's an easy fix. It's going to have major impact on making sure that restraining orders are given properly, that child custody is handled correctly, and as well as that criminal prosecutions are given as much evidence as possible.
It brings in a whole bunch of different aspects to the life of someone who is in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you always say that things that you bring to the that you want laws passed about are because you have heard from people in your districts. This is what's so important for people to understand out there, is that you represent all of the people, but all of the unique situations that other people might not think about. Like I wouldn't have thought about something like that is even an issue
until it happened.
Until it happens.
Until it happened, I had no idea that it was something that we did.
Right. Okay, so there's something you can do. One other thing, an act establishing statewide food truck regulations.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense to me.
It does. I mean, food trucks have blown up. There's actually a economist report out there that they believe double-digit growth still for the next 5 years in food trucks.
Yeah.
And that's basically how they measured out, was 5 years. So they see double-digit growth in this. And they've exploded all over the South Shore. They're all of our community events. They're awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of brick and mortars have transitioned to a food truck, and vice versa. We've seen food trucks transition to brick and mortars.
Yep.
And so we want to continue the growth of this industry. The one problem that they have is that currently they're regulated by local Department of Public Health.
Okay.
And so that means that every single town that you're in, you have a new set of regulations that you need to abide by. But on top of that, and they don't really care about the regulations. Most of these food trucks are very clean.
Yes.
They're up to all the standards. But the biggest thing is each one of them comes with a fee.
Yeah.
And so if you're working in 10 or 15 communities, these fees can range from $50 to $300. And, you cap yourself out at a certain point in time because you say, how many more permits can I pull to go into this community? And I believe that a lot of communities are being left out of being able to experience food trucks. And I think that food trucks are really being restricted on their opportunity to have the growth that they're expected to see nationally here in Massachusetts, because we don't have statewide regulations in place. This would charge the Department of Public Health to put in place regulations that once a year our food trucks would have to abide by, obviously random inspections and other ways in which they want to procure those regs. But this would really tighten up the ability for our food trucks to expand, to operate in whatever community they wanted to, without the sort of having to go to each one of the towns.
Right.
And if you go to, say you're operating 15 towns, and you operate there differently, it's too expensive. And then you're going through these inspections 15, 20 times a year.
Yeah.
And it just becomes really cumbersome on the growth of their business.
And food trucks are one of the things that really bring people together. You see them in a lot of outdoor venues where you have families, you have market, you have craft fairs, and food trucks become a big, huge part of those. And so to make it easier is obviously better.
They're awesome. We want to see them grow. And the long-term goal is to have some of these favorite food trucks of ours open up a space inside of our community.
Sure.
I mean, there's plenty of still open storefronts that would love businesses, and to be able to have them experience that growth, add to their customer base, and then potentially give it a go at a brick and mortar.
Yep.
But, I think that if you, really restrict them on where they can operate and the amount that it's going to cost them to do that, I think that
it's prohibitive.
It's prohibitive.
Yep.
And the state can and has in so many different other areas come into play in these things.
Sure.
And I think that the
Why
food
not?
trucks
Makes sense.
They came along before we had regs in place. Now it's time to put regs in place.
Okay, let's talk about some things that you've done in the district.
Sure.
You went to a ribbon cutting for the Hingham's new public safety building. Now that is a big, cool thing that happened in Hingham.
It is, and it's a long time coming. I mean, obviously, we've heard since I've been in office about the tight quarters and sort of the older condition of the police station that we have where town hall is. So this gives the police station a brand new department. I actually said during the ceremony that this is a beautiful building that's representative of the amazing police department that we have in Hingham. And I think that it's going to be, it's awesome. And logistically, it makes a lot more sense being on 3A. There's obviously the fire component that's there as well. So it's a full public safety building.
And a lot of towns are going towards that.
They are. Yeah. You start
public safety I know Pembroke is doing that right now. It just makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. And I think that this is a huge investment that the community made. But, you constantly see it over and over again that folks on the South Shore are willing to invest into making their communities better, even if it means, raising their property taxes a little bit. But this is something that's going to have a lasting impact. And the building came out beautifully. Yeah. It was a great ceremony that we were able to have. And it's going to just add a continued, layer on what I consider a marquee police department, a marquee fire department, is making sure that they have the buildings that represent the folks that work there.
And what about Norwell? What's going on in Norwell? I know the V&A had their annual Amy Sylvester Award ceremony.
Yeah, they recognized Donna Pino, who's just been an amazing advocate. Her and her late husband Bob have done so much for the South Shore. When I talk about being out in the district at every single one of these community events, I see Donna and I used to see Bob,
Hmm.
and they're the first ones, with their paddles up, supporting
Yeah.
these organizations with their resources. Donna had said, "To much is given, much is expected,"
Yeah.
and they've really lived that creed. And their family, their children have
Hmm.
really picked up on that as well, and they're involved in a lot of organizations here on the South Shore that make a huge impact. And I always say that, the South Shore, in my opinion, has the best community-based nonprofits that exist, I think, in the state. And if the
If
state
not
is the
the
best at
country.
doing it, then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And you see it from, being able to help people put food on their table, to, helping pay their bills, to supporting individuals with disabilities or our seniors or people who are at end of life.
Yep.
All these things are really treasured here
Right.
in the South Shore, and the Pinos have been people who have made that happen,
Yeah.
investing in our South Shore Hospital, all these
Yep.
different groups. I
Yep.
mean, you name a group, I can
They've been
probably
involved with
tell
it.
you a story
Yeah.
that the Pinos
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
involved with, and they do it out of the kindness of their own heart. And
And there's a lot of
made it
people
work.
like that in our
There are.
community.
There's a ton of people like that.
So as we have about 5 minutes left, and as a state senator, what are the most pressing issues in your mind that all of us need to be working on, concentrating on, and educating ourselves about right now?
I think there's two. I think one is the uncertainty in Washington. Obviously, as we're recording this, the government is still closed in D.C.
Yep.
I think that it's an absolute shame. I think that Republicans and Democrats need to start working together in a bipartisan way and really right the ship on
Yeah.
this division that's going on, because it's crazy. It's counterproductive, and I think that is led to an unstable partner in Washington.
Mhm.
And I would say that it's happening now, but it's happened under previous administrations too. But right now, we are really seeing a lack of a partnership when it comes to the potential of folks who live in Massachusetts losing important benefits that they need to put food on their table or provide nutrition for their newborn children.
Yeah.
To some of the infrastructure projects we have. So I think that keeping an eye on Washington and hoping, saying a prayer, doing whatever it is that you think is going to work to make sure that they understand that they're doing a job down there.
Right.
Congress was elected by us to represent our interests, and instead I feel like they're representing party interests. And I think that it's a real shame what's happening. And you can see the spill out of that is just no cooperation amongst Democrats and Republicans at the federal level. And in turn, it's only going to hurt Massachusetts, because we need a government and a partner to cooperate down in DC to achieve our goals here in Massachusetts.
So people tend to, in a time like this, they either get very angry and they speak out, which obviously is one way to do it, or they kind of hunker down and say, I'm going to take care of my little space in my little world, the little things that I have control over. Is there a way to do both?
Yeah, and I can understand both. I really can. And I've seen it. I see the frustration that's out there. I experience the frustration as well. And I also see that's out of my control, and we can control this. And I see the work that we do in our office, which is making sure that our little part of the world is not negatively impacted by whatever happens by outside forces, whether it be the state or the federal government, that we on the South Shore can continue to provide that example.
That's the point, because I think, and I've been doing this for a long time with Republicans and Democrats alike, and you do work together in Massachusetts.
Oh, absolutely.
It should be a model for the country.
I think that it is.
And people should know that. People should understand that our legislature in Massachusetts, we're really lucky to have who we have.
Well, I
and you
appreciate
work
that.
wonderfully together.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's something that we inherited. It's more of who we are as a state. You look at the Republican Party. Ed Brooke, the first African American senator, having very moderate. I consider myself moderate. Having very moderate Republicans who put a more sort of pragmatic approach to things, like Governor Baker, who was a strong ally of mine, and I fully supported him. And parties fracture, parties change over periods of times. We've seen it over and over in the course of American history. And I think that that's one of the most important things we can do right now is stay true to our beliefs in Massachusetts of who we are, and provide that example, so that hopefully when the smoke clears and the noise quiets down a little bit, they can look to Massachusetts as a functioning, running government where Republicans and Democrats work together to get things done for the common good.
With a good foundation, which is what we have here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have 1 minute left. So I follow you on Facebook and on Instagram, and you're on X also, I assume?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to know what you're doing on a daily basis can follow you. So you can see that you do hundreds of things every month.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much you do. How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about something?
Sure. So our office hours are posted on our social media as well as our website. Uh, Call us 617-722-1646. I actually opened up a few years ago, not at taxpayers' expense, at our own expense, an office in Weymouth, so
Mhm.
855 Washington Street. We recommend people to come in if they have a problem in Weymouth. Office hours, give us a call, send us an email. It's my name, patrick.o'connor@masenate.gov. And we'd love to hear from you,
Yeah.
whether it's an idea that you have to make the community better or the state better, whether it's a problem you're experiencing inside of state government, you just want to talk about an issue, whatever it is, we're here to help. And we have an amazing team behind us in the office that work hard every single day to make sure that we provide as many solutions to problems as
As you
possible.
can. And you are definitely for you, the people.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. This has been Senator O'Connor and with me, Julie Thompson. And until next time, have a good day.